and you can overcome it too. I think in that moment, you might not think that you can, but looking back, you were supposed to go through like all of those shitty feelings and the hard times, because like where you stand now in your future is because you know all of that stuff.
What's up, pals, and welcome back to another episode of The Passion Project. I'm your host, Hallee Smith, visual storyteller and creator on TikTok and YouTube. I hope that this podcast can inspire you to get out of your comfort zone and into your passions so that you can live a truly fulfilling life. And the best part about it is, we're on this journey together. So let's go. Happy New Year, Podcast Beans, and welcome back to the podcast. I know I ended up taking a little break. I was going to keep doing the episodes, but I decided that if I'm going to be taking a break, I should be going all in on my break. So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode with Christy and the dog, Lollipop. Christy and her dog, Lollipop. That was such a fun episode, and I really hope you guys liked it as much as I did. It was fun to record, despite the potty breaks we had to take. So if you haven't listened to that one, go check it out. But a few updates before we jump into today's episode, which, by the way, is a guest episode, as you probably know from the hook of the podcast. But the break was nice. I'm really excited for 2023. It gave me a lot of time to gain clarity, to overcome burnout, and get myself back on track with a solid plan, some New Year's resolutions, and some new things to be excited about in 2023. So the biggest change that I want to tell you guys about, that you guys should know about, is that the frequency of these episodes is going to be scaled back a little bit. As you guys know, despite having a little help with editing, I am a one-woman show for the most part, so I really want to focus on marketing this podcast. So again, if you guys want to leave a review, send this to a friend, share it with someone you think it could help. It helps more than you know. And so I'm going to be focusing a lot more on marketing this podcast, posting it on social media, getting you guys those clips, the best clips from the podcast. So be sure you're following us on socials. Join the email list to know when the episodes come out. They'll still come out every Wednesday, so that's not going to change. Wednesday mornings when they come out. But I'm going to scale it back to 1 to 2 episodes a month. But still stay tuned. That'll give me the opportunity to focus more on quality over quantity and get you guys the best possible episodes talking about things you guys want to hear about. As you know, my inbox is always open, my email. It's halleespassionproject@gmail.com. That's HALLEE, halleespassionproject@gmail.com. You can also just comment on social media or send me a DM if you have an episode you want to hear or a person to hear from. So now for today's episode. We are joined by my friend and fellow entrepreneur, Amanda Nelson, also known as Exploring Amanda on social media, so at Exploring Amanda. She's the owner of the wellness brand 60 Days Away, which provides people with the tools they need to find their independence and step into their own freedom and power. Through her products and social media videos, Amanda has helped thousands of people become the best versions of themselves in a no BS way. Amanda does not do the BS. She cuts straight to the point. She will tell you what you need to hear. No fluff involved. She's also been in Austin, Texas for 6 years and enjoys discovering new restaurants, comedy shows, traveling, and is thinking up her newest wellness product soon. So you guys are going to want to listen in. Some of the things she's passionate about, aside from her professional, what she comes off as, her brand, her personal brand, she's also passionate about travel, wellness, getting into home decor, foster children issues, inspiring as many people as she can, singing, and Uber Eats, all of which we will touch on in this episode. So if any of those things you're passionate about, you're going to want to listen in. We dive into manifestation, another multi-passionate journey that's super inspiring. So if you have multiple passions, as I say in this episode, if any of these things resonated with you, I'm going to stop rambling so we can jump in and you can listen to today's episode. So let's go. Amanda, welcome to the Passion Project.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Super excited to have you on. Something new I started doing with every guest is starting with a kind of fun, lighthearted question. What is your most used emoji?
I would probably have to say the heart hands, like this one.
Oh, okay. That's becoming one of my new favorites. I was trying to guess what yours might be based on your post, and I thought it was going to be this one. The hand.
I love that one too, but I use this one more. I use the heart one more, but I do love the chef's kiss one.
The chef's kiss, yes. I love that. So how long have you been an entrepreneur, to kind of jump into things?
So I started my first business in 2016.
What did you start with? Like, what did that look like?
So I graduated college in 2010, and I did like an accelerator program because I was like, if I take any breaks off, like I'm not going to come back. I just know that about myself. So I just went like straight through. I didn't have any summers off. It sucked, but I got it done. I graduated at the end of 2010 in December with a degree in fashion marketing. And so with that, I worked in the retail industry, was managing a couple like Free Peoples and like other boutiques and stores in the Mid-Atlantic district. And then I was like, you know what? I kind of want to open my own clothing store. Don't know what I'm doing, but I want to do it. So let's do it. My New Year's resolution in 2016 was I want to quit my job and like start my own boutique, which in 2016 I feel like was very like, what does she do? Like no one was doing that.
It was extra ballsy back then to do your own thing.
January 1st, I decided I was going to do it. And then January 4th, I filed my LLC paperwork, had no idea what I was doing, but started my own business in 2016.
That's really cool. I didn't know you ever did fashion. Was that something that used to be like you were super passionate about?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was like everything. Like I like lived it. I breathed it. I just loved everything about it. Yeah.
That's cool. And so when we met, I know what you were doing travel, a lot of travel content and travel coaching. So for anyone listening, for a little background, Amanda and I met on Clubhouse, which was, I mean, it still exists, I think, but I don't think people use it so much. It's an audio chat app. And around that time when Amanda and I met, she was doing a lot of travel content. And so what led you from the fashion industry and starting your own business there to the travel content and doing travel coaching?
Good question. There's a huge span there too. So I don't want anybody to think like, let me preface this and say like, this was not like an overnight thing. It was probably like 7 years in between the fashion and so like generally just like life happened. I fell out of love with it. Like the business was going great, like profitable year over year. It was wonderful. Like it wasn't that. I just liquidated it and sold it off because I was like, I just don't feel like I'm supposed to be doing this and I want the next challenge. And I started like actually hating going to the post office every single day to like send orders. And I found myself over time dreading it. So I was like, I don't love it. Travel, on the other hand, is something that I've always sort of like idolized because I could never do it growing up. We didn't really have the means to travel and we couldn't afford it. So as an adult, like kind of making my own money, what little money that was, I was like, I'm gonna fucking travel. You know what I'm saying? Like I want to go out and see what I can see of the world. And I say the world, but I mean like, you know, the United States, nothing like grand or like crazy, but for a lot of people, me, one of them included, I was like, this is great. That's kind of how I transitioned of like finally having the means to be able to do something and then figuring out how to make a business doing it.
That's really inspiring to hear because personally, I always feel a guilt when I kind of have that falling out of love with something. And that's what I like to talk about on here a lot is being multi-passionate and giving the space and allowing for that to happen. I think you're a really good testament to just doing that beautifully. You made that transition, you made it work. And so once you started doing travel content and kind of travel coaching, talk about a little bit what you built, because I know you built a whole program around it.
Yeah, so I started making a lot more money than I ever thought that I would ever make traveling, which blew my mind at the time. I think because, well, my mind wasn't set up for those possibilities in the first place. So it was really like mind blowing. Now that I know like, okay, I'm capable of doing something like that. My beliefs are set up in place. But at the time I was like, what is happening? I don't know what's happening. And so then people, you know, what happens is people start knocking on my door and they're like, how did you do this? Can you teach me how to make money? And so I did that. I created a beginner course and marketed that for like $19.99, made some TikTok videos about it. The TikToks kind of went viral or semi-viral and made a lot of sales doing that just with the evergreen content. And then I found that there was a need for people to dig deeper and they were like, can we do one-on-ones? I was like, yeah, let's do one-on-one. So I started meeting with people, taking a lot of my time to help tailor my program to them. Here's what your niche is. Here's what your deliverable should be. This is what you should be charging. Here's how to find people's emails. Like all of the things that I've learned over the last few years, and put it into just like give them the tailor-made formula. And I was really, really proud of what I built. And so that's kind of the whole travel course of it all.
Really cool. I think what I'm hearing, and one of the things you did was that you recognized a problem and then you solved it kind of along the way.
Yeah, and then when people see that, they're like, oh shit, I can do that too. Or can I do it? And then like, can you help me? And that's what I was all about. I was like, I know I want to help people. I don't know if this is like ultimately going to be the way that I end up helping people, but there's a need for it right now. So I'm going to fill that need and like help people wherever I can.
I love that. And I want to dial back a little bit because I know, so we talked kind of on the outward success of things and how you were able to transition. It's really cool how you literally transitioned seamlessly from what it sounds. I'm sure it didn't feel that way to you, from fashion to travel, and now you're doing your own business, or you started your wellness brand 60 Days Away, which I want to talk more about. But first, I kind of want to go into the behind the scenes, like the struggles behind it. At any point in the journey, what was like one of the biggest struggles you had to overcome in transitioning from, totally different industries?
Yeah, I think for me, also understanding that everybody has their own like individual struggles that they will face if they were doing the same exact thing. But for me, what kept coming up was the outward perception of others. How will people perceive me if I keep quote unquote pivoting? How will people look at me? What will they say of, oh, well, she must have failed. She must have failed her clothing business in 2016. She must have failed doing the travel thing. She must, that was sort of this outward perception of what are people going to think of me. That was probably my biggest struggle until I slowly found a way to get over it. Like there's no magic like pill too, because I feel like that's probably your next question. Like, how did you get over it?
Yeah. I know a lot of people are always looking for kind of a quick fix, but that's never the reality of anything.
It's not. And I wish it was. My God, I wish it was. I think life would be so much easier, but you wouldn't really learn any lessons. You kind of have to do this sucks day in, day out until you find a solution that works for you. Because what works for me may not work for you. Like, if I were to say, like, this is what fixed me and this is what helped me get my mindset out, that could maybe trigger something in, like, your story that doesn't jive with you. So, yeah, I think that was my biggest struggle, was just, like, I'm going to be perceived as a failure.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that feeling. And I'm assuming, and I know that any other multi-passionate person struggles with that, because you feel kind of like, I don't know, if like a lack of like, oh, I can't commit to something forever. But that's, I think, the beauty of people who kind of have that type of brain, is that you can become super passionate about something. You can see it to whatever point you get it to, and then you can move on to something else without feeling that guilt.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult to not feel that guilt, but in order to make those moves, like you said, you have to kind of overcome that.
Yeah, and you can overcome it too. I think in that moment, you might not think that you can, but looking back, you were supposed to go through like all of those shitty feelings and the hard times, because like where you stand now in your future is because you know all of that stuff. So like it does serve a purpose ultimately. Like I can look back on it and be like, yeah, that still sucked. I still wish I wouldn't have gone through it. But now I'm like, oh, I needed to, because now I know like all of the lessons surrounding that. Like that has somebody else's opinion doesn't have anything to do with me, outward projections on their part. Like now I know all of that. And so I feel like there is like a point, there is merit, and like you can and will get through it.
Yeah, everything happens for a reason, and what would you be without your story? I know one of the things that stood out to me and was really inspiring to me when I first started hearing about you and your story, and you talked a lot about, there was a point in your life when you were on the welfare system and on food stamps, and you got yourself out of that. So talk about that a little bit. Like what led you to that point, and how did you get yourself out of it?
Yeah, I was 19, and so it was like I'm in college, like we talked about earlier. I knew that I didn't have self-discipline. I knew I wouldn't have been able to go back to college. And even though I was living with a few other people at the time, it was just an irresponsible choices that I made with my finances, irresponsible choices of who I was surrounding myself with. And so ultimately, like, just all of those bad choices compounded and landed me in that decision. How I got out of it was, and this is not, like, may not be feasible for everybody, but I physically had to move. Out of where I was. And if you don't have the means to be able to do that, you can change your surroundings in so many other ways. Like, I can talk to you about this ad nauseum, but it's like, your surroundings can be anything. What are you listening to? Who are you hanging out with in your life? Like, you don't have to physically get up and move to a different town, city, or state, or country, or what have you. You can, like, great. If you have the means, like, go see the world, like, live your life. But if you can't, that's still okay. And a lot of people can do these little small, like, tangible things of, what are you auditorily listening to? Like, if you're listening to the same, like, shit music instead of maybe like a self-help or uplifting podcast, that has a massive effect.
You don't even realize how much stuff like that impacts your mental health and just, like, your mentality in general.
Yeah, man. It's huge. Like, even just taking a shower, I would like to challenge anybody listening to this podcast, like, next time you're in the shower, like, what are you thinking about in the shower? You're thinking of, like, stupid shower thoughts, like shit that doesn't matter. Your brain's on autopilot because you do the same thing all the time. You're like, wash my hair, wash my body, whatever. But, like, try to listen to something while you're in there, because that's just dead space where you're doing the same thing anyway. You could be, like, putting this new information into your mind and, like, therefore bettering yourself exponentially. Just try it. It's going to change your life. I'm telling you.
I've totally done that before. And I agree. We always talk about action steps on here. So there you guys go. There's an action step already. We're like, I don't know how many minutes in. We're like 14 minutes in, something like that. We already got an action step. But yeah, environment is huge.
Yeah, man. Huge.
I know one of the things you talk about a lot in your videos, because just to kind of recap, because I know we jumped a little bit in terms of timeline, but you went from college and then you had your fashion phase, you had your travel phase, just to kind of simplify it. And then we had your wellness brand phase. And you said you noticed that problem because people were having an issue with the mindset behind implementing the things you were teaching them. Now you talk a lot about mindset and surrounding yourself with positive people and getting yourself out of toxic environments. So how can someone kind of go about that in terms of the people? We talked environment, but what about the people? Like, identifying toxic people in your life, and how do you remove them without kind of feeling like kind of like an asshole? Like, you're just kicking them out of your life, you know?
You will feel like an asshole at the beginning. I don't think there's really any way around it. Like, because it's something you're not used to. Like, you're not used to going up to somebody and being like, hi, these are my boundaries and this is what I need for this relationship to continue. So it's going to feel hard. It's going to feel awkward and it's going to suck. Yeah, it's going to feel really uncomfortable. But I think, and there's so much out there right now of, get rid of toxic people. And if they disagree with you, they're toxic, get them out of your life. I don't agree with all of that, but I do think in order to help identify it, you need to understand that you're 50% of that relationship, which also might mean taking a hard look and taking some radical responsibility for your shit too. Because I think, oftentimes we're so easy to point the finger and be like, well, they're wrong because they did this and they did this, but, like, also you're allowing it. And that's pretty huge. You're allowing it, people will continue to treat you how you allow, so it's recognizing that before I give you any action items. I just need people to know that, because you have to blame too. We're not perfect people, and so, like, our egos sometimes get in the way. Okay, that aside, I think if you have the right mindset going into it, because it's so important, having a conversation, and before you have the conversation, write down what you need. What do I need in this relationship? Is it like a friendship, a family member relationship? Is it an intimate relationship? What do I need? And where am I not, like, where are you falling short? And how can I also help you to help me? So, for example, I don't know. This is the first time I ever did this example. All right, so I have these AirPods right here. If you and I are in a friendship and I'm like, what I need, but I've never vocalized to you that I need is, like, I need you to bring me these when you're done using them or something. And you never do. So, like, I internalize it and I get so pissed. And every time you don't do it, I'm having conversations in my head, but you don't know because I never told you. That doesn't mean that you're toxic. That means I need to do a better job of communicating my needs. So I tell you, hey, I think it would be really cool if you could do this. And when you don't do it, here's how it makes me feel. And this is, like, so awkward, me even having to talk to you about it. And I wish I didn't, but, like, I just want to be real, like, I just want to just tell you what I need. Cool. You understand, I understand, we move on with our lives. Now, if in the future you purposefully and blatantly make it an obvious point to not return them back to me, that's, I think, when it's that repeated behavior when it becomes an issue, of when I would say you need to have a conversation with them saying, hey, example 1, example 2, example 3, I told you, I made it really clear. If I didn't make it clear, let me know, but I think I did a really good job. And when you do this, it makes me feel like this, and I can't have it in my life anymore. So it's so awkward and uncomfortable, but I mean, you're better off for it, because if they're truly not adding any value to your life, you're wasting your time.
So what it really, I mean, from what I'm hearing, it boils down to first taking a look at yourself and then having these difficult conversations that might be uncomfortable, but they have to happen.
Totally, because it's a time suck. Like, you're just wasting your time, you're wasting your energy, because, if you come to me and I see you with the AirPods or whatever the example is, you're just in your head, you're beating yourself up and you're like, I deserve better, but I can't say anything and I'm uncomfortable. But it's like all of that energy that you're wasting, just like ruminating over something, when you could just say, hey, I need this, I'm not getting it. If it happens again, I'm going to walk. I have to. Nothing, no hard feelings. I'm doing it for me. The other person should be able to understand that, if you say it in a good way, if you're not, like, pointing the finger and blaming.
Yeah, that's super healthy. So communication skills, I think that's huge, with both identifying, because on a surface level, if maybe someone's new to this, it can sound overwhelming. It's like, well, in this scenario, this, but in this scenario, this. But I think the way you broke it down with that specific example, a simple example, really just lays it out, and how much we can get in our heads and kind of create those scenarios.
Yeah, totally. We gotta take some responsibility, at least 50% of it.
Yeah, absolutely. How would you say, like, where could someone start with taking that personal responsibility? Like, if they maybe haven't ever even thought that way, what would be the first thing they should do to kind of step into that awareness?
Try to be present as much as you can throughout the day. Being present, and, like, how to even do that, if you've never even tried that, is what I recommend is setting little reminders on your phone to go off at random times throughout the day that you're not expecting. And so that when you look at your phone, it's like, practice being present right now for 30 seconds. So, okay, if that goes off, then I'm thinking, all right, what do I see around me? I'm physically being present right now. What are the textures that I feel? What are the sights that I see? What are the things that I smell? Like, just touching, like, just being present, and try practicing that more, because when you do that, you're really becoming more in tune with your feelings. And so then when you practice being present, you can practice taking more responsibility for the things that you're physically taking in, because your responsibility, your surroundings are partially your responsibility, and 50% of every relationship is yours too. So I think starting with the being present, like a little phone reminder hack, that's what I would recommend.
I like that one. I do a lot of meditating. So, and a while ago, I did some episodes on mindfulness. So you guys, mindfulness is huge. That's really, I love I discovered it during quarantine, and ever since I started meditating and started thinking in a mindful way, it's just made the biggest difference in my awareness, and kind of what you were saying. and being able to take personal responsibility for things, but then also set that boundary.
It's all like pretty hard work too. So I don't want anyone thinking like, oh, it's just easy. Like I can be a master in a week. It's like you have to constantly keep practicing, but the payoff is huge. The payoff is huge because then you start to see what you deserve and you can cut out the things that don't align with what you deserve. So it's like all in your best interest, really.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little more because I think on social media, there's this huge trend of like the self-care trend, and like making your day look super aesthetic and
Yeah.
self-care this, self-care that, and it just looks all beautiful and pretty. But in reality, that self-care of taking that responsibility is not easy.
No, it's pretty heavy. I think there's merit in like half of that. Like, so I think because I tried to put myself in, I try to be like devil's advocate. So like making it look great and then never showing the like crappy parts. I don't love that, but like to each their own. But I do think that there's a lot of good that can be had in like romanticizing your day, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. So that's not only going to help you stay accountable, but it's also going to help boost your morale a little bit. That way you can look back at that, like whatever aesthetic video that you made and you're like, oh shit, cool. Like, God, I do live a really cool life and I really like my bedspread and I really like these candles that I have. And like, those little dopamine hits can be good in aiding in your like personal development or self-improvement journey. But yeah, that is a little bit of a trend now, isn't it?
Yeah. I do think that's a good way of putting it, though, the way you said that and thinking of it in terms of something you're doing for yourself, like making that aesthetic video. I think it's fine with how you said if you're doing it for yourself and it's something you can look back on and reward yourself for. But I think the issue can come when people fall into the trap of doing it just for the views.
Yeah, intentionality behind anything, really. Like, we don't know, but I think it would be best if you could, do it for yourself rather than anybody else.
Intentionality is another thing I wanted to talk about. What does being intentional mean to you?
I think just not breaking promises to yourself. Mm-hmm. I think being intentional for me means showing up, having integrity, doing what I said I was going to do, and doing it with as little distractions as possible. I think you could still be intentional and have distractions, but I think you're going to get a better outcome with intentionality if you are like 100% laser focused on something.
And being able to like be present, I think back to the multi-passionate thing, but when you have so many interests, it's hard to focus in general. So I think being intentional, having the reasoning behind why you're doing what you're doing is just extra important when your brain's wired that way. I know in your journal, I took a look at it. I was going through it. And so talk a little about what your journal is before we dive into like the specifics of it. But I think this can tie back into being intentional.
I created a journal called 60 Days Away, Becoming Your Higher Self in 60 Days. And I wanted it to be this wellness tool, this really like tangible thing that people can use when they're starting their wellness journey or in the middle of it. But I wanted it to be disruptive, I think is a good word, because I think a lot of my personality is in there. Like you're going to get some cuss words, you're going to get some real talk, you're going to get a little woo-woo, but it's all just, it's very easily digestible. So it's a 60-day guided journal and there are daily prompts, daily activations, and things to just keep you intentional and also on track. You're going to create new goals and you're going to stick to them. You're going to, talk about what you want to bring into your reality. So whether you want to call that manifesting or whatever the hell you want to call it, it doesn't really matter. It's there for you. There's a morning section and there's an evening section. And so you don't have to be, a morning person. You don't have to wake up at 5 a.m. to use it. It's there for you, but there's a nighttime section too that you can fill out. You can track your water. Like there's just so many things, but I really wanted it to be digestible to help people who are like, I feel like I am, made for something more. I don't know how to get there. So this is going to get you there.
I really like that part of the journal. I like that it has different touch points throughout the day. Because something I struggle with is doing something at night for being present and journaling and like all that type of stuff. I always do it in the morning and then I forget about it the whole day. But I think that having those different touch points throughout the day can help with that mindfulness that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, totally. I think the big thing right now too is like, let's glamorize our morning routines, but not a lot of people are talking about the nighttime routines. So whether you do it in the morning, whether you do it in the night, like it really doesn't matter as long as you just do one bit. But I do like the nighttime part for being present. And one of my favorite parts about the evening section is there is a little section called release, and it says, write down right here, right now, something that you are not carrying into the next day, and just leave it on the page. And then when you're done, say to yourself, either out loud or in your head, by releasing this, I let that shit go. I make room for more abundance and more possibilities into my life. So something along those lines. And it just feels so good because you just, like the person in traffic who cut me off today, like I don't need to bring that into my day tomorrow. So I'm just going to leave it on this piece of paper right here. And it's like this weight off of my shoulders and feels so good. And then when I wake up in the morning, I'm not worried about it because I already left it on that page. And I just love that because you don't want to bring all that stuff, especially right before you go to sleep. Like you want to be chill. You don't want to be like aggro, and you don't want to have all these like...
You want to let go of it before you have like nightmares or terrible dreams.
Right. Exactly. You don't want your subconscious getting a hold of that shit and then dreaming about it. You don't want that.
And sleeping is like literally where your brain cleanses itself. So I need to start doing that. I mean, I have the journal now, so hey, I'm gonna have to start filling it out. But back to being intentional, I think that just, having this journal or any journal and writing, that's intentionality. A step at least.
Yeah, you're so right. And it's, it's a couple minutes every single day. It doesn't have to be major. It doesn't have to be this whole, thing where you make it bigger than it actually is. It just takes a couple minutes, and that's you being intentional, and then you bring in that intention for the whole rest of your day. There's also a section in the journal called intention. So it says, in one word, what do you want to be today? Or in more than one word, whatever you want, you can do. It's a whole section dedicated to it. So I want to have clarity is what I wrote this morning in mine. So I just wrote clarity. Some days I write like courageous. Some days I write spontaneous. Like, what is your intention for the day? And like starting the day off with not only journaling, but just like taking a second for yourself. Like being selfish is something that like, especially as women, it's like, you shouldn't be selfish. It's like, no, we are being selfish, especially what we want for our day. Like, get out of here. We are doing the damn thing. So yeah, that one word for your day can just set your whole day like on a completely different trajectory. And it's all because you took a couple minutes in the morning, like, hi, yeah, I'm going to do that. Of course.
I love that. And honestly, with the selfish, like that's not even like, I wouldn't even call that selfish. I personally think that taking care of yourself is not selfish because when your cup is full, then you can pour into other people.
Thank you.
One of the things that you're passionate about, I know, and I mentioned this in the intro because I gave you a little introduction, but foster children causes. How has being an entrepreneur and like setting this path for yourself and being intentional allowed you to kind of have the space to dedicate to things like that?
Oh, dude, it's like, I feel like it hasn't allowed me more space to do stuff like that because I think you have to be the one to create space. But it's allowed me more like, what's the word I'm thinking of? Like just financials to be able to do something like that because if I want to, donate or whatever. But before I was an entrepreneur, when I was working for somebody else, I was making that space for myself and creating time to go. And, I would mentor a foster child and we would go do things like froyo and like paddleboarding on the lake. And it was so incredible. But I don't think being an entrepreneur necessarily like gave me the space. I think it more so gave me the resources in terms of like monetary to be able to say like, here's my time, but also here's like something else to back it. Because that's a passion that's just really close to my heart. I think everyone has that like one thing that just like pulls at your heartstrings. And like that for me is it. And I'm just like, oh God, I just want to help,
Yeah, I love that. So it's more about making the space for what you can do at that time to provide. Like you said, at first it was your time, and now it can be both your time and the financials because you've built what you've built.
Totally. I think it's just prioritizing, you know, how you want to spend your time, because we can all say we don't have time, but it's like we do. You don't want to prioritize it. So what little shifts can you make in your day that, like, maybe waking up earlier, or maybe doing that a different day instead of when you have it on the calendar, like whatever it is, if you really want it to happen, you'll prioritize it.
Yeah, you will make it happen. And that's the thing is, when I notice when I get to a point and I start saying the excuse, I don't have time, I have to kind of dial back and be like, no, I do have time. I'm just not managing it well, and I'm not making time for the right things.
I do that all the time too. Like, I'm not perfect. I say that shit all the time, and then I'm like, Amanda, you know better. You know better, Amanda. And then I, you know, put myself in check. But yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah, it's okay to fall back into those patterns because it's hard to not, but can you continue to pull yourself back out?
Totally, yeah.
So out of all your passions, we've touched on a lot of them, like travel, wellness, foster children causes, inspiring as many people as you can, singing, and Uber Eats. What? Like, this is the time that I just, like, you can geek out on whatever one of those you feel drawn to, but, like, I just love hearing people talk about the things they're passionate about. So which one of those did we not talk enough about?
I don't know, man. I'm such a, like, creative person. I've always been into, like, singing and painting and anything involving, like, the creative arts. So I'm really passionate about that. I try to do it as much as I can. My husband started learning how to play the guitar, so sometimes we'll have, like, jam sessions, which I love so much because it allows me to just, like, dude, something's just so freeing about doing whatever you're passionate about, that you feel like you're the only person in the world, and it's just like, oh, this is my, like, space to do whatever I want. But dude, Uber Eats, like, any like, I heard somebody talking the other day, and they were like, you know, it's really unfortunate because we as humans are supposed to have human connection, and there's things like Grubhub and Uber Eats, and I was like, totally, that sucks. And then I, like, pulled out my phone, I was like, Uber Eats, I love it. I understand there's supposed to be a connection, but some days I ain't trying to go be in front of a million people looking like a scrub. Like, I want to just have it delivered to my house. So that's my little fun fact. This episode is not sponsored by Uber Eats.
Yeah, Uber Eats is not sponsoring this. It's just something Amanda's passionate about.
I love it. Oh my god.
No, I love that though. So, okay, I'm glad we got to do that because that was fun. It's funny, I wanted to say this too. My brother actually recently, during quarantine, he got into guitar. And so he does jam sessions, and every now and again I'll try and sing along with him, and it really is fun. It's free.
It's just fun. Like, it's a good, lighthearted fun. You don't have to take everything too seriously, which sometimes I do. And then I have to, like, and my husband's like, Amanda, you are not performing. Like, you don't need to, nobody knows you were just flat or sharp or whatever you're saying. He's like, I don't have any idea. Like, chill out. So, but when I do finally step into that space where I can just chill and not be so, like, this is my, like, performance, it is so fun. Like, I need to do that more. I'm glad we talked about this.
Yeah. Okay, wait. I actually want to ask you more about that because I have the same issue where you're doing something for fun, but you also kind of have this competitive spirit that you want to be the best at it, or you feel like you're doing a performance. How do you get yourself out of that headspace and into the, I'm just doing this for fun. This doesn't have to be a performance. This doesn't have to feel like I'm Ariana Grande on a stage right now.
Yeah. No, I am so glad you asked. And I'm going to be really, really, really honest with you. I think that whatever issue you keep coming up on, if you practice and work at it, the whole point to work on it is supposed to be to get your lag time down, right? So, like, for example, if I look at and I get, like, a crap comment on my TikTok, I have worked on that skill, that specific TikTok comment skill, to know that, all right, instead of it bothering me for, like, weeks or a day or 10 minutes, now it's 5 minutes, now it's 2 minutes, now it's 30 seconds. You work on that reaction time, getting lower and lower and lower. So that when you look at it, you're like, it doesn't bother me. So back to the competitive, fun dichotomy, I haven't worked on it that much. So the only way that I overcome it right now, because I haven't practiced overcoming that specific skill, is my husband just being like, Amanda, snap out of it, and telling me that a few times. Like if he says, okay, chill, it's not a big deal, I'm still in my head about it. Like I haven't practiced it enough to be able to say like, this is how I get over it, because right now it's not something that I practice getting over. So I'm still like in my head about it. I wish I had a better answer, but at least I want to be honest with you. It's just him saying like, snap out of it. What are you doing? Because it sucks. Like I don't want to be that like crazy competitive person, because it does inhibit this like freeness and funness and like lightheartedness of it all. But I am still. So that's my honest answer.
Well, I think that, I mean, honestly, it ties back in with who you surround yourself with and the environment you're in, and having those type of people that can like give you the reality check you need, and then knowing the areas that you might need that reality check in.
Yeah. Or encouragement, reality check encouragement, same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, all those things. So we've covered a lot of good topics today. But I think one of the overarching, like if we had an umbrella over it, it all kind of boils down to manifesting your dream life. In all we talked about all the tactics that go into it and all the nitty gritty in your story. But if someone wants to manifest their dream life, they're kind of stuck. They don't know what to do. How should they get started? Like what should they do to start on that path to manifesting their dream life?
So first and foremost, I'm going to circle back to changing your surroundings. That's the easiest place that you can start, because you cannot manifest your quote unquote dream life without having the base work set up. And if you're in this negative environment constantly, you're hanging out with the wrong people, like your environment, what you're listening to audibly, what you see visually every day, that is the first place to start. Once you have that, let's say you already have that, next step would be you got to get your mindset right. You can't be one of those people to just be like, well, that must be nice, or easy for her to say, or I'll never have that. Because if you think you'll never have it, you ain't never going to get it. Okay, you have to actually believe that you are worthy of whatever you want. You have to believe, hey, I want to manifest this thing, I'm going to get it. I don't know how I'm going to get it, but I know that I can if I stick my mind to it. And so having that mindset of I am worthy will set you up for whatever you want. And then third thing is like just dream really, really big, and then go bigger, and then go bigger. So much so that like if somebody were to like take your journal or look at it, they'd be like, who the fuck does this person think she is? She thinks she can have that? Like I want people looking at you like you're crazy. You don't have to tell people. You don't have to tell people your manifestations, I think. And honestly, at the beginning, it's best to keep them to yourself. You need to feel like 100% like you were worthy. So the whole thing is like just mindset, environment, surrounding yourself with great people. And then lastly, this is like a 5-part answer. Don't take advice from anybody who hasn't been where you are going, who doesn't have the things that you want, who are naysayers, who are telling you you can't. You want to immediately remove yourself from any of those situations. Because that is the antithesis of growing in any capacity, whether you're into manifesting or not. You know, if somebody tells you that you can't, mow the lawn, I mean, you can maybe, but you're going to feel like shit doing it. You're like, oh, they told me I couldn't. And so that negative feeling is still circulating in the neural pathways in your brain. And that's going to inhibit you from calling anything into your life, because I believe that like what you think you attract. So you got to get your mind right. I
love those. Well, guys, we have some quality action steps now from Amanda. And then, of course, also your journal. So feel free to plug that now. Like, how can people, if they want to try the 60 Days Away journal, where can they find it, and where can they find you on social?
Totally. So if you want to get the 60 Days Away journal, we have a couple options. Amazon.com would be the best option. Also, exploringamanda.com. And also, if you don't want to wait for like 2-day shipping or anything like that, there's an instant digital download version that you can get. It's also a lot cheaper. It's less than $20, and it's the same exact thing, but you can download it to your iPad, your phone, whatever. And then you can find the brand at 60 Days Away on social media, and then you can find me at Exploring Amanda on pretty much every social media platform.
Awesome. And everything that Amanda just said is going to be linked in the show notes. So you can find her, you can find her journal, and you can hear more about what she's all about. But I think you guys got a pretty good idea today. So Amanda, thank you so much for being on. This was amazing. And if you guys think that this episode can help someone you know, be sure to share it with them, because we're all about spreading the positivity. So again, Amanda, thank you so much for being on, and peace out, everybody.